You ever notice what happens the moment you stop chasing? Not the fake, I'm ignoring you to get you back stuff. I mean real detachment. The moment you stop sending that extra message to keep the connection warm. The moment you stop checking if they watched your story. Stop scanning for clues. Stop trying to remind someone you exist. Something shifts, not because you did something dramatic, not because you blocked them, not because you made a speech or begged for clarity. The shift happens because your energy stops leaking. And silence, real silence, speaks in a language the ego can't ignore. Here's the first thing most men need to hear: you don't have to delete someone to move on. You don't have to announce you're done. You don't have to prove you're over them. You don't have to perform indifference. You just detach. You just step back and let time do what words never could. Because energy speaks louder than messages, and your nervous system knows when you're still tethered. When you stop feeding a connection, it starts to fade on its own, not as a punishment, as a natural consequence. Attention is fuel, consistency is fuel, emotional availability is fuel. And when you stop supplying it, the dynamic changes because it has to. Most people think closure comes from a conversation. They think they need one final talk, one final explanation, one final moment where both people agree on what happened. But real closure doesn't come from perfect communication. It comes from control. Control over where your attention goes. Control over what you refuse to chase. Control over whether you keep reaching for the same person, hoping they finally become who you needed them to be. That's the hardest part for men who are loyal to a fault. You're not addicted to the person as much as you're addicted to the hope. The idea that if you just say the right thing, show up the right way, stay patient long enough, they'll eventually meet you in the middle. Detachment is the moment you stop negotiating with hope. It's the moment you stop responding to the old version of yourself that needed their validation to feel steady. And that's why it lands so hard when you detach. Not because you're playing a game, because your energy is no longer available to be pulled. There's a difference between silence as manipulation and silence as maturity. Manipulation is silence with an agenda. It's, I'm going quiet so you'll panic. It's strategy. It's control. Detachment is silence with integrity. It's, I'm going quiet because I'm done abandoning myself. It's boundary. It's peace. That distinction matters because a lot of guys think detachment means being cold, angry, or cruel. They think they have to become heartless to regain power. No. Detachment isn't cold. It's clear. It's not revenge. It's self respect. It's you finally accepting one painful truth. You cannot convince someone to value you. You can't argue your way into being chosen. You can't text your way into being prioritized. You can't love someone into showing up with consistency. And once you accept that, you stop wasting energy on someone who benefits from your effort without matching it. Here's what most men don't understand about why silence changes things. Human beings adapt to your presence. When you're always available, your value becomes background noise. When you always respond, your effort becomes expected. When you keep showing up after being disappointed, people learn they can take you for granted without consequences. It doesn't even make them evil. It makes them human. People respect what costs them something. And if your attention costs them nothing, they will spend it like it's infinite. That's why your absence hits differently. Not because they suddenly realize your worth like a movie scene, but because your absence removes a certainty. It removes the assumption that you'll always be there. And uncertainty forces awareness. That's the psychology of it. Your presence is a pattern. Your absence breaks the pattern. And when a pattern breaks, the mind notices. Now, here's the part that sounds harsh, but it's real. The person who loses you usually doesn't feel it immediately. Most people go through stages when access gets removed. Not always in a clean timeline, but the pattern is common. Stage 1, they don't notice. Not because you didn't matter, but because they're used to you. They assume you're still there. They assume the door's still open. They assume the dynamic is unchanged. Stage 2, they wonder. They notice the silence, the lack of check-ins, the missing effort. They start doing subtle audits. They check your page. They look for signs. They test the connection in small ways. A story reply, a random message, something low investment to see if you're still on the hook. Stage 3, they feel it, not as a dramatic heartbreak necessarily, but as a shift in power, a loss of influence, a recognition that the version of you that was always reachable is gone. And that's what hits people, not the silence itself, but the peace behind it. Because peace tells the truth. Peace says, I'm not angry, I'm not begging, I'm not trying to win, I'm done. And when someone realizes they can't pull your emotions anymore, it forces them to face something uncomfortable. You were not just an option, you were a foundation, you were effort, you were stability, you were attention they didn't earn, and now it's gone. But listen carefully. Your goal is not to make them feel it. If your goal is to make them feel it, you're still attached. You're still negotiating. You're still living in their frame. The goal is to get your life back. Detachment is not about teaching them a lesson. It's about refusing to keep paying tuition to a relationship that never graduated into something real. So, what does quiet detachment actually look like in a man's life? It looks like discipline. It looks like refusing to send the just checking in text when you know it's really, please validate me. It looks like not stalking their social media because you're trying to decode whether they care. It looks like not replying instantly out of anxiety, not responding to breadcrumbs, not entertaining mixed signals. Because mixed signals aren't mysterious, they're a decision. There's someone keeping you close enough to stay available, but far enough to avoid commitment. Detachment is the moment you stop volunteering for that role, and you do it without a speech. That's what makes it powerful. Because explaining too much is often another form of chasing. It's you trying to be understood by someone who was never listening. A man who is grounded doesn't beg to be recognized. He moves accordingly. Now, let's be practical because motivation fades fast without a system. If you want to detach quietly, you need to remove the hooks. The hooks are the small habits that keep you emotionally tethered. Hook number 1, checking. Checking their profile, checking their stories, checking whether they're online, checking if they liked something. That habit seems small, but it keeps your nervous system in a state of monitoring. You're training your brain to look to them for emotional weather. And when you do that, you can't stabilize. So the first move is to stop monitoring, not as a performance, as detox. Hook number 2, availability. If you respond instantly, every time, you're teaching your brain that your peace depends on keeping the connection alive. You're also teaching them that access to you is automatic. So slow down, not as a tactic, as a boundary. Give yourself space to choose instead of reacting. Hook number 3, fantasy. Fantasy is the most dangerous hook. The mental movie where they finally apologize, finally realize, finally return with clarity and consistency. Fantasy keeps men loyal to a future that doesn't exist. Detach from fantasy by watching behavior, not words. Watch patterns, not promises. Watch what happens when it's inconvenient for them. That's who they are. Hook number four, loneliness. A lot of men don't chase because the person is perfect. They chase because being alone forces them to face their life. Detachment requires that you build a life that can hold you without constant romantic stimulation. That means you need structure, training, work, sleep, friendships, goals, a schedule that doesn't leave you sitting in silence with your phone. Not because you're running away from pain, but because you're giving your mind something real to invest in. Here's the truth: detachment feels like withdrawal because it is. You're removing a source of dopamine and emotional intensity. Your brain will protest. It will try to negotiate. It will whisper. Just send one text. Just check once. Just see what they're doing. That's not love. That's your nervous system trying to get a hit. And this is where men either level up or relapse. If you can sit through the urge without obeying it, you build self control. If you obey the urge, you reinforce dependency. So make it simple. When you feel the pull, do something physical. Go for a walk. Do push ups. Clean your room. Work on your craft. Message a friend. Take a cold shower. Write the truth in a note app. I miss the feeling, not the reality. Because the body is the lever. If you move your body, you change your state. And state change is how you break attachment. Now, a lot of men hear detach and think it means becoming indifferent to everyone, like they have to turn into stone. That's not the move. Detachment is not shutting down your heart, it's stopping the bleed. It's learning to love without losing yourself. It's learning to care without chasing. It's learning to be present without being dependent. The strongest men aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who feel deeply and still choose wisely. And here's the most important reframe: you are not losing them. You are returning to yourself. You are reclaiming the energy you were spending trying to be remembered. Because that's what chasing really is: you trying to secure your place in someone else's mind. Quiet detachment is you deciding your place in your own life matters more. This is why glowing up after someone loses access to you hits so hard. Not because you're trying to make them jealous, but because growth changes the story. When you focus on your own evolution, training, finances, skills, discipline, confidence, you stop being the man who needed the connection to feel alive. And nothing is louder than watching someone become stronger without announcing it. No speeches, no posts, no flexing, just results. That's what creates respect. Even if they never admit it, they feel the difference. But again, the goal isn't to punish them with your success. The goal is to stop punishing yourself with your attachment. So here's the simple blueprint: you don't block them unless you need to protect yourself from repeated disruption. You don't beg them. You don't send long paragraphs. You don't prove you're over them. You stop feeding the connection. You stop monitoring them. You stop responding from anxiety. You stop negotiating with mixed signals. You detach quietly. You let distance do the talking. Because distance is a truth serum. It reveals who reaches, who values, who invests, who only enjoyed access. And if they come back once you detach, you don't reward it automatically. You watch whether their behavior changed or whether they're just checking if you're still available. A man with standards doesn't get reattached because someone reappears. He asks one question: is this healthy, consistent, and respectful now? If yes, you can explore. If not, you keep moving. That's strength. And let's end with a line most men need, tattooed mentally: you were never asking for too much. You were just giving it to the wrong person. So let your peace speak. Let your absence be the message. Let your discipline do the talking. And when they finally realize what they lost, don't turn around just to confirm the loss. By then, you should already be gone. Not bitter, not angry, not broken, just upgraded, centered, quiet, free.